Hey guys, my name is Michael Ninneman, pace bowler for Southern Districts. Today we're just going to be talking about some of the key principles for fast bowlers, so some of the key things to be working on. One of the first things we're going to work on is our run-up. Really important for that run-up to be nice and smooth, where we're building rhythm and taking momentum with us through into the crease. Probably the biggest thing that I learned from my run-up was when I worked with Michael Delaney, who was a fast bowler for the Redbacks. So something that we worked on specifically was from the top of my mark, I had 2 set points in my run-up. The other thing with run-ups is that we want to be nice and straight. So we're taking all our momentum directly through to our target, which is typically that off stump for the batsman. You'll see a lot of young bowlers kind of zigzag or do funny little shapes in that run-up. Easy way to take that out of the equation is just to line up some cones. So if you just pop some cones down in a nice line along your run-up, that then stops you from running in and out of the line that you're trying to get down to your target. Once I hit that first cone, I look to accelerate and accelerate harder again once I hit that second cone so I can hit the crease nice and hard. Hitting the crease hard is a term that you hear thrown around in bowling circles quite a bit, but you don't actually understand what hitting the crease hard means until you actually start to really accelerate and take some speed with you into the crease to then get momentum through the ball. What we can do for our run-up is look to measure that one out with tape. So you see a lot of young bowlers walking and stepping their run-ups out to measure that. With those steps, we can often be quite inconsistent. So if you get yourself a little tape measure, a lot of the groundsmen will have tape measures, but if you can get yourself one nice and cheap at Bunnings, a little bit of spray paint, and you can actually consistently mark that run-up out. At the top of that run-up, we really want to have a set area in mind that we're wanting to bowl. Typically, that's a couple meters, 2 or 3 meters in front of the batsman. So if we think of a crease line, we want to be that nice full length that's drawing the batsman out. So you've got your little area in mind. What I tend to do before I actually bowl in a game is I'll stand on the crease line, I'll look down the pitch, and I'll try find spots in that area that I can look at. And so when I get to the top of my mark, I'm actually trying to find that little bit of grass or that little dark spot in the pitch, and I'm trying to hit that. In terms of actually constructing an over, the best bit of advice I got was from David King telling me that your first ball and your last ball of your over belongs to the bowler at the other end. So it's your duty to bowl in a partnership to make that first ball and last ball right on the money, that you actually help set your partner up for a good over at the other end. When we're looking to build that over up, best way to do that is to get into our stock balls. So just that ball that you bowl best, which is typically that length ball, setting a batsman up in that means. And then every now and then we might use a full Yorker or that short ball to kind of mix things up and potentially be a wicket ball. But we're looking to be nice and consistent. Majority of those 6 balls, 5 out of 6 I'd say at least, on a nice good length. As a pace bowler, you're often going to find yourself bowling toward the end of an innings. So where spinners are taken off, batsmen are starting to come really hard at you and you're looking to close up that innings. Couple key things to think about is the least likelihood for the batsman to score runs. Best ball you can possibly bowl is that Yorker. So if you kind of set yourself up in your training to be able to bowl that Yorker well, put a set of shoes down in front of the stumps, that kind of thing, and actually train that Yorker, you're going to set yourself up really well for bowling at the death. The other thing to think about is not being too consistent and predictable. So actually having those change-ups in mind, whether that be a back of the hand slower ball, your off cutter, leg cutter, your knuckle ball, split seam, that kind of thing. But it's all things that you have to train through, actually implement into your training sessions that you get better at. For me personally, I like to go the leg cutter. That leg cutter, I tend to have my finger sitting right on the inside of that seam for middle finger, and then that index finger sitting a little bit further down. Push the weight straight through that middle finger, and we tend to have a nice roll down the side of the ball. So get that ball to seam from right to left. Other things to think about is the use of a bouncer. A lot of the time batsmen are coming really hard at you, so they're getting on the front foot trying to hit you down the ground. That can be a good time to really get a nice short ball in. You can bowl that straight down the seam, or you can hold it cross seam. A lot of the time if we're holding it cross seam, it's really predictable, so the batsmen tend to know that either the short ball or some form of change-up is coming. Most important thing for those change-ups is having a field set in mind. So if you're going to be bowling a short ball, it's really, really important that you have that deep square out potentially a fine leg, someone else maybe on the leg side as well. If we are bowling those full balls in the Yorkers or the slower balls, really important that we have long on, long off back, and potentially a mid-wicket or a square leg, that kind of thing. If you're bowling slower balls, there's not really too much need for a third man and a fine leg. But that's where predictability comes into play. So you need to be hard to read by the batsman. Another change-up that I like to use is a back of the hand slower ball. In that one, you're gripping it in exactly the same fashion as you would for a normal ball. And once you get down to the hip in that action, you just spin that ball around and you're bowling that one out the back of the hand. I like to use that one in the form of a bouncer as well. So where I really try and dig that slow ball bouncer into the ground and it just doesn't get much pace on it, and so it dips, often getting the batsman to be really early on that shot. In terms of your stock ball, for an outswinger, we'll typically either be straight down the seam, in that sense there, or we tend to just slightly rotate that ball towards the batsman. So I'll show you from that angle there. So we can either be straight down the seam, or that just slight rotation in the direction that we're trying to swing the ball away. When we're looking to bowl that ball, all we want to do is just roll those fingers straight down the seam, keeping that wrist nice and upright to allow that ball every opportunity to swing. For that in-swinger, all I'm looking to do is either hold that straight down the seam or slightly rotate that in towards the direction that I'm trying to swing it, so into the batsman. I'll show you from this direction again there. So either straight down the seam or rotating that ball slightly inward toward the batsman. Key thing for that in-swinger is that we just want to have a last-minute flick of the wrist in towards the direction that we're trying to swing that ball. Again, running our fingers directly down the back of that ball to give it every opportunity to swing in. My stock standard ball is that outswinger. It probably took me a couple of seasons of really working hard on trying to implement an in-swinger into my game. Probably my season in England where I was bowling with a Duke ball that really swings, that allowed me to really work on that in-swinger the most. Whether your stock ball's an in-swinger or an outswinger, it's always pretty handy to learn how to bowl the other variation. So that's something to work on. One of the most important things you can work on as a fast bowler is just getting your body conditioned, getting strong, being flexible, and getting that running fit down pat. With bowling, one of the main things you're doing is running, walking back to the top of your mark and running again. And a lot of the times as the games get longer, you're doing that for overs and overs and overs throughout the day. So that fitness is really, really important. Strength is really important. When we're bowling, we have huge loads going through the legs, through the knees, through the ankles, through the spine. Really important that we get strong through the core, strong through the legs, through the upper body, that we can handle that and reduce our risk of injury. After games, recovery is really important. So if you can find some ice, some kind of compression clothing, if you find the chance to have a nice light stretch, that'll really set you up, especially if you're playing several games in a row. It's going to set you up to feel fresher, feel stronger the next day. There's also studies that tend to show that stretch increases your range of motion, which has a resultant increase in strength from your training. So if you actually keep flexibility as part of your training, you're going to go better in the gym, you're going to reduce your injury, you're going to reduce periods of time where you're possibly out of the gym due to injury or recovery. So really important to get that recovery in after games. For nutrition, fuel is really, really important. So you wouldn't go pouring Coca-Cola into your car. Not saying you can't drink Coca-Cola, but the fuel that we're putting into our bodies is just as important. So you want to make sure you're eating the right things, you're eating good foods, getting that kind of stuff in after games and before training sessions to make sure that you're operating at your peak. Thanks for watching, guys. Really hope that you learned something out of that and that you're able to implement some of that into your game. A lot of that has really benefited me over my years, so I really hope that you can start to implement that and hopefully see a little change in your game. Thanks.